welcome to Pop-O-Holics, the show about hot takes, hotter than hot tasty pancakes, and listeners, get them ready, them tissues. I don't know if you know this, but this movie's about daddy issues. Yeah, Chris, no wonder you like the video feed isn't going for this episode. You just did a jerk-off motion, and then
you said get the tissues.
For tears.
It's not that kind of movie, Chris.
My mistake.
That kind of movie. Get out of here with your... We started off real dirty on this. I don't know if I love that. Anyway, that is in reference to the movie that we're going to be talking about. This is Pop-O-Holics. We do things but different around here. I don't know if you noticed. But I'm Christian. I'm the host. You can call me that. I'm doing something. But I'm joined as always by my two best friends.
Chris Conkling.
And Brian Dupree.
And what is this show? Well, this is the main topic episode on the Pop-O-Holics, where we discuss a film or work of art related to a theme in honor of Thor: Love and Thunder, a movie that is just everybody loves, and there's no conversation really to have other than its resounding joy that people have from seeing that film. We are talking about some of the films from Taika Waititi, the writer-director from New Zealand itself. And we have covered, what have we covered? We covered his first film, Eagle vs. Shark. We covered Thor: Love and Thunder. And we have a video review of that that's up on the YouTube, as well as an audio review on this very platform that you're listening on. And in
the past, we've also covered...
makes an appearance.
Stormbreaker does make an appearance. In the past, we've covered Jojo Rabbit and What We Do in the Shadows.
Yeah, so we've already touched on a lot of his work, and we're just kind of filling in the gaps, as we like to do on this show. Fill in gaps. Gentlemen, how are you doing today? How has, as I've themed it, as I've coined it, because we always have fun names for our months. Hey there, Jalila. What's it like in Taika Waititi?
Hey there, Jalila. What's it like in Taika Waititi?
Yes, I can't wait for you to see what I'm going to do with all of those takes that you've done.
I can't wait either.
Yeah,
it's going to be great.
I'm going to throw it in the garbage. Gentlemen, how has this month been treating you so far?
Yikes. I've been having a great time this month. I think Eagle vs. Shark was maybe the most uncomfortable watch of these movies so far. Still very enjoyable, but very quirky and funny. Moving on, I was obviously hotter on Thor: Love and Thunder than Chris was. Christian and I kind of liked it a bit more. But yeah, going back to his solo writer-director movies outside of the MCU, the emotional depths that he can get to are just so much deeper, and it's really great going back to see where his kind of core skill set is, and obviously how he used it to varying effects in Ragnarok and Love and Thunder. But yeah, these movies are... I'm very excited to get into this one because
emotionally
as you said,
impactful.
None of us had seen it, and yeah, very much
surprisingly
resonant.
Tragic.
Yeah, for sure. Had a great time this month. I can't wait to come back to Hunt for the Wilderpeople because I really liked that when I first saw it, and I've only seen it the one time.
Yeah, that'll be next week's episode. Chris, how's the month going so far?
Boys, I love me some Taika Waititi. Regardless of how I felt about Thor: Love and Thunder, the man has never disappointed me. As Brian said, he's a creative genius, you know, and when it comes to his original works, I think they're all fantastic in various ways. And, we're going to be talking about Boy this week, but it doesn't disappoint, or he doesn't disappoint, rather, in his ability to mix comedy and heart and tragedy. And I'm excited to get into it.
Yeah, I think what's interesting about what wasn't working for, I think, most of us for Thor: Love and Thunder, the Eagle vs. Shark, as well as what we'll be talking about, balances some silly and wackiness with the emotional core extremely well. And so it's only, I think, when Taika is stressed to his absolute limit with making a giant, CG-heavy blockbuster that gets harder. But it's crazy to see at the core how well he balances those things. And we'll be talking about that and much more as we talk about today's episode, Taika Waititi's Boy.
Kia ora, my name is Boy, and welcome to my interesting world. My favourite person is Michael Jackson. Want to see some Michael Jackson dance moves? My favourite subjects are art, social studies,
I'll kick both your nuts off, and you'll have none.
and Michael Jackson. I have a 6-year-old brother called Rocky. He's got powers.
Hey, boy.
So, boy,
Hey, boy.
Thank you, boy.
I'm named after my dad. He's overseas doing some pretty important stuff.
Oh, man, you're a liar. Your dad's in jail for robbery.
People call me a dumb honky all the time. I don't go around punching them out.
Why not?
Because they're usually children.
Who are you?
Boy,
Alright. I'm your dad.
oh,
Think you can handle having the Incredible Hulk for a daddy?
how long is he here for? Don't know.
No, she was my dad.
What he's looking for?
Treasure.
Can you stop calling me Dad? Sounds weird.
That is from the trailer of Boy. 2010, directed by Taika Waititi, written by Taika Waititi. He did write this film right before doing Eagle vs. Shark. It was kind of already written, and then it was ready to kind of go into production. Cinematography by Adam Clark, filmed in his hometown in New Zealand. With a score by the Phoenix Foundation. It had a budget of, we couldn't find out, and it grossed about $8.6 million, went on to win, I believe, a Spotlight Award at Sundance, but it was featured at the Sundance Film Festival that year. And it stars, honestly, I'm not even going to do this. It's got a lot of Pacific Islander locals that were filmed for this, and I'm not going to butcher their names. I'm just not going to do it justice. So you can look. We have it linked in the show notes to read all of them. But I would just be butchering all of their names. Taika Waititi does play himself. I can pronounce James Rolleston as the titular boy. And then many other very talented people. I do want to shout out Cherilee Martin. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, she's been featured in all of his movies pretty much. I want to make sure I get that right. It is she runs Rachel House, excuse me. Rachel House is featured in this, as she was featured in she's What We Do in the Shadows. She's been in
She plays Auntie Gracie.
yeah, and Auntie Gracie.
She was in Thor: Love and Thunder. She's in Hunt for the Wilderpeople.
Oh, yeah.
She was in Eagle vs. Shark.
Yeah.
Actually, don't think she was in What We Do in the Shadows. That may be the only one that she was.
Really? Yeah, I have to check it. So what are we going to talk about? Non-spoiler thoughts. If you haven't seen the film yet, I think we're all going to pretty much recommend you see it. I think it's a really great little indie flick. To spoil my thoughts ahead of time, but we will be doing a non-spoiler if you haven't seen it, if you want to hear our overall thoughts, and then we'll go into spoilers with talking about our stand-up moments and kind of the film overall, with being free of the shackles of not having to spoil the film. So let's start out with overall thoughts. Brian, I'm going to start with you, my friend. What'd you think of Taika Waititi's Boy?
I love this movie. I took a little bit of a gamble and showed this one for movie night with my family this week. My parents are actually on vacation, so it's just my sister and some of my cousins, but everyone loved this movie. It was not... Yeah, I think Eagle vs. Shark would have been a harder sell, so I'm glad this was the one that I chose for family movie night this week. I think this movie is beautiful and hilarious, that has really great child acting performances. James Rolleston carries this movie throughout and has clear changes in his personality and who he is throughout the course of this movie. I looked up, apparently on IMDb, the lead in this movie, the main person who was cast, Taika realized 3 days before shooting that he was not right for the role, and he was just on set as an extra, Rolleston was, and got the lead, and still carried this movie in incredibly, I think, which is really impressive. There are tons of clever and fun visual gags. I wanted to shout out Chris Plummer for a lot of the editing work here. Just really great gags that are happening with the editing, some of which I'll get to in favorite moments. They do these similar to Eagle vs. Shark, where we had the stop motion animation. Here we have visualizations, whether like fantasy with live action or drawing, that are representative of kind of like this childlike way of looking at the world and imagining things against the harsh, what can be the harsh reality sometimes, and having characters having to reckon with these realities and things that you idols that you have, or things that you think the ways of the world excuse me, ways that you see the world and the way you think that it is, butting up against the harsh reality of what it is, and our characters dealing with that throughout the course of this movie. I think the visualizations do an excellent job of helping us understand what our characters are going through there. Taika is playing a sort of unlikable character here, similar to Jermaine Clement in Eagle vs. Shark, but he gets so many funny moments that we're still on board for most of this movie with him, I think. And like I said, we get these fantasy scenes where characters get to play different roles, and he's having a ton of fun there as well. The movie's low budget, clearly, but it gives us exactly, as much as we need with the animation and the cutscenes. Like, we know exactly what Michael Jackson covers being referenced and all of these things, even though, these sets are not the highest quality. All of it is exactly what it needs to be. And it's, unfortunately, to some degree, I think it's a beautiful movie. It's a coming-of-age story that these sorts of things tend to leave you hopeful, and this movie doesn't really leave you hopeful necessarily. I think it kind of very truthfully shows this loss of childlike wonder to some degree, and it's more specific than that, but this very common thing that you ultimately have to come up against with your imaginations of the world versus what the world functionally and practically is. And that's something that everyone has to deal with growing up and coming into who they are as a person. And I think it's displayed really well throughout the course of this movie. And like you said, Chris, is kind of tragic, but, he's a good kid. He's gonna get through it. I really love this one. As usual, the comedy is balancing out the emotional bits well, and this one does pull at the heartstrings. There's some difficult moments, so I had a really good time with Boy.
Yeah, well said. Chris?
I have to echo pretty much everything that Brian said. I too very much like this movie. You can see in this film that Taika is growing more into himself. Eagle versus Shark was very much an indie film, a budding director's project. And while this is still an independent film, you can see him laying the groundwork for projects that will come down the line in his filmography. But as Brian mentioned, it's just kind of a really sweet story about a boy growing up idolizing his father and coming to terms with who his father actually is. And Taika's able to sprinkle in, as I said, the comedy and the heart and some genuinely sad moments that had me tearing up over the course of the movie. I kind of disagree with you, Brian, about the film not having a very hopeful ending. I think it does have a hopeful ending, and we can talk about that maybe a little bit more in spoilers. I don't want to just flat out say it here, but I think the evolution of Boy over the course of the film is a hopeful evolution, and we'll dive a little bit deeper when we get there. But yeah, a lot of the same sensibilities here as we saw in Eagle versus Shark, the animation instead of the stop motion, as Brian mentioned, and solid performances all around. Watching Taika play all of these fantasy versions of his character is a ton of fun, and he's really reveling in the imagination process. And you can tell just by watching him that this is really where like Taika shines as a creative. He loves just goofing around and having fun and playing, basically, So yeah, I also had a ton of fun with this movie. I'm glad that I now finally have all of Taika Waititi's films under my belt. This is the last one that I needed to watch. But Christian, how'd you feel about Boy?
Yeah, I quite enjoyed it. I watched this one with my fiance, and she agreed too. So echoing lots of the stuff you all said. I think it's really wonderful. We kind of talked about this in our weekly upload, which are on Mondays, by the way, listeners, where we talked about Miss Marvel a bit about the strengths of that show are putting you in a place, in a very different place than what we've seen in the rest of the MCU. And in this film, it's like I've never seen a movie about a native Pacific Islander growing up in the outskirts of Western colonial 1980s. Like, come on, that's just a movie I haven't seen. That's a perspective I haven't seen. So I enjoy that this is very much, it's very like autobiographical from Taika Waititi. So it really feels like pulling from the influence of how he grew up, and it feels very personal like that. And although from what you told me, Chris, I actually haven't read this anywhere, but he has a really great relationship with his parents, and this film is about a much
He has
more...
a great relation. I'm not sure how great the relationship is with his father, but he certainly has a great relationship with his mother. He does use his father's surname Waititi, for all of his creative endeavors. But I recently heard him, sorry to go on this small digression, but I recently heard him in an interview talking about how growing up in this like Pacific Island environment, he and all the other kids that used to not have dads used to go around bullying the kids with dads. And I don't know how serious he is when actually saying that, but I think hearing him say that, if it is true, gives us more insight into what Boy is actually about, you know?
Sure, yeah, it is very fun and light and bubbly, but also, I mean, it's also like terrifying. I mean, there's parts of this movie, implications of how some of these children grew up and the types of people they have and running their father role and where they're at. You know, it's kind of like, it's like Lord of the Flies, but an adult shows up, but you know, it's just a big kid. It's like,
right.
So in seeing it in the context of this like small little like Pacific Island village, I just find very fresh. Obviously, there's some themes that are very like throughout in a lot of literature and movies and stuff, but the tonality, and again, what I said before I played the trailer, balancing some really like deeply sad stuff and you know, the goofiness of Taika and Boy's character is nothing short of really awesome filmmaking and making us care about the emotions while also being able to laugh. I do think that the character of Rocky, who plays the Boy's brother and Taika's other son, is very effective in what he does, but I felt like a little bit like I wish I got more from that character. That character reminded me more of me than Boy does. As someone
He's so sweet though,
someone
in the film.
who was the younger brother,
He is.
I wanted to connect more with that character, and we don't get a ton. And I think that's for a lot of reasons. We might go into spoilers. So ultimately, I don't think it's a failure of the film. It's just something maybe I was interested in seeing more of that we didn't get a ton of later in. So otherwise, all the character moments pretty much work for me. I think New Zealand continues to be a really beautiful place to shoot a movie.
Yes.
So it lends itself to that even like what I would consider, you know, watching this reminded me of friends that I had in like the outskirts of where I lived in Florida. And Florida has some pretty country ass, you know, very low income places. And it reminded me of people and families I knew in those situations, except for they were on like, the vistas of beautiful like rolling hills and mountains, and I was like, I'd rather be, if I'm gonna be poor and live in like an old dilapidated house, I'd rather do it in New Zealand. I mean, that's a luxury right there. So but still, you know, as much as this is a new perspective, it's amazing to see like how some things are very different. Some things just never change about people that grew up. I almost wanted to call it, especially the very beginnings of this film, the New Zealand Project.
Oh my gosh.
Because parts of it have this like lawless, disparate kids having to make their own fun living, you know, on the outskirts of what we can consider like civilization, right? And in dealing with the dreams and aspirations that young people have that are growing up in that of, you know, one day being able to do like, what's my ultimate form of happiness? It's this, you know, dream of riches, and I believe the film equates it to like dolphins, like owning dolphins, and something, you know,
with tuxedos on.
You know, so there is this like idea of where these people grow up and the kinds of things that our modern like global capitalist society puts in people's minds of like what will make you happy and the kinds of things you gravitate towards. So all that stuff I really related with. I thought was great. So overall, the movie's working for me on almost every level, and it was quite a joy to watch. And really, I mean, it's hard because I love Jojo Rabbit. I love Eagle vs. Shark was very fun. What We Do in the Shadows. But this feels like a very special part of his catalog that is definitely ranking in one of my top Taika movies. It's very, very solid. Gentlemen, any final thoughts before we go into spoilers, of course?
Leaf is a goat.
Leaf is a goat. Yes.
Love great goat content. Keep it coming, Taika.
Brian. Tying it back to Thor, Love and Thunder.
Yes.
I don't think this is my favorite Taika Waititi movie, but I still think I like Jojo Rabbit and What We Do in the Shadows more. But as you mentioned, this does feel like a deeply personal piece. Some like basically just what he grew up doing. So I can see how this is more personal than those other films that I mentioned. But
yeah, and it was an early beginning of Taika deciding to take on a role that did not make him look good in a lot of respects, right?
Yeah.
And he did that kind of forced. Well, in Jojo Rabbit, it was very hard to find an actor of note to play Adolf Hitler.
Right. He basically had to do it himself.
And in this film, it was similar, but he was kind of the deciding factor. And I guess he just didn't find someone who played it as goofy. He wanted to. He knew that like the trick to this working was that you had to like him on some level, and there was going to be like this redeeming charm, because just with the facts of the case, as we'll get into spoilers, pretty deadbeat dad.
Yeah, but like you said earlier, he's perfect because he has to play a big baby. Like an adult child, essentially.
Yeah. And he's got big hair to go along with the big baby, so got a lot going there.
His like fro thing's looking great. I think it looks awesome.
It's wild. It's like wavy and huge at the beginning. I was like, whoa.
I think it was like a joke for 2010 as far as a style, but like that's like a legit style now. It looks good.
I think it's a bit silly maybe, but I think, like you said, I think it's kind of intentionally played that way. But I liked it. I mean, it was a good character.
He looks like MacGruber. He looks like we talked about it with Holly Hunt. Who was that? The guy that played opposite Holly Hunter in Man Overboard. Kurt Russell. He's got like a real Kurt Russell vibe going on, which is back in vogue.
All right, I can see that.
All right, we're jumping into spoilers for Boy. My name's Boy. I'm named after my dad because Taika is actually the character that is Boy. He also needs to come of age because he was stunted. I thought that was beautiful. I love that symmetry because we start off and we wonder like the whole time and like I don't know. I thought that was like one of the most perfect parts about the movie, which was its title. And I thought it was like misleading and really made sense towards the end of, he's almost more like a brother to his son. He's more like an older brother to his son than he is.
Well, I mean, Taika even says that in the middle of the film, asks him to stop calling him dad and kind of explains that I think we're more like a, big brother, older brother, or whatever. I'm not going to attempt to do a Taika impression.
And we also
I'll leave that to
see.
you.
Don't worry. I can. Call me Shogun.
Shogun. Little Shogun.
We also see throughout the course that it's like he was left in charge of taking care of his entire family for an extended period of time, right? So it's like
like a week or two.
Yeah, so he is more of a father figure to his siblings than the father ever had been for sure.
Yeah, and when he tries to emulate being his dad, he becomes a really shitty dad because it's not a dad. It's
rough.
And Brian, that's why I think this movie is actually has a more hopeful ending than what you were saying, in that Boy is able to overcome his delusions about his father and become a better man than he is, a better person than he is.
For sure.
So I think
I was talking
is innately hopeful. But what
I
were
agree.
you talking?
No, I agree with that. I was
about?
talking kind of specifically about the relationship between him and the father and kind of how that's
I can see that
essentially crumbled. But and there's a moment where the woman who takes care of them, is it their aunt or grandmother?
It's their grandma.
Their grandmother.
The one that leaves to go to the funeral.
When she gets home, she leaves to go to the funeral. When she gets home and all the other kids are super excited, we see the look on Boy's face, and it's just like something has changed within him. And that thing, that kind of ineffable change that everyone ultimately goes through, like you can't go back from, that is kind of the thing too. But I agree that like he's going to be a better person than his father and treat his family better for sure.
Yeah, it ultimately becomes like very tragic, and we talked about this with Eagle vs. Shark about how I think one of the strengths of Taika is taking unlikable characters and making them likable. Like that's such a hard thing to do, and we find so much. We realize that Taika's character really loved their mother, and that really really hurt him. And he definitely had a love for them, but maybe was still growing into being a father figure and was cut short before he could mature into that. And
I don't know, man. Like, and the reason I kind of push back a little bit is by the end of the movie, we've realized once Boy is recovering his true memories of his childhood, we realize that he left way before she even had her second baby.
we do realize
Like he just completely abandoned them. Like at the beginning of the movie, all of Boy's memories include him in his memories, include his father being there. But once the delusion is broken, he remembers that he wasn't there for any of it. His mother died in childbirth alone without him there. So while I might agree with you that he loved her at some point, I think it was prior to her having children, which is very selfish. And
well, it couldn't have been prior to Boy being born.
at least prior to
Rocky being born.
Rocky being born.
I didn't actually connect the dots that he wasn't around for that. But you're right. When the scene we don't see Taika there, I don't think.
Initially, he's in the memory. He's there crying at the foot of the bed, and then when Boy remembers it again later on in the movie, it's just his grandma in the room.
I thought
and Taika's not there.
I thought that was just an extended thing where he left after that and didn't come back. You know what I mean?
No, because it also shows him sitting with his mother being pregnant with Rocky earlier in the movie. Taika's in that scene. And then when we revisit it, he's not. So it shows us both of his memories, but now Taika's absent.
Actually, he wasn't
from both
there.
of them.
Yeah,
I think he may even confront him about it at some
He
point.
does. He's
too,
like, you weren't there for her.
Right.
Yeah. At the end when he's beating him up.
Yeah.
Right.
So yeah, I mean, the point still stands that he is a despicable character in so many regards, and we still find that there's like passions that he had, and he's able, like when he tries, he can connect with his kids, and when they're playing, I mean, they have that scene where they play soldier and run up the hill and stuff.
Oh my gosh, when he's got the giant stick with the like seaweed as like the machine gun rounds, just incredible play. Like it's so fun.
Yeah,
And that's great. And I do love those moments, but like they're also very sad moments because you realize that he's not the dad that these kids need. He's a friend and just like you said earlier, Christian, someone with just like arrested development. You know, like he's incapable in that moment of being the father that they need. He can only be this like playful friend.
Sorry, when you said that, all I heard in my head was bum 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 bum.
I see. Ron Howard.
It was very funny when Taika Waititi took off the bat. He was Gene Parmesan. Yeah, reference her. If we have any Gen Zers here, they're like, I don't get it. So that show's not very funny. But you should check it out. Maybe you'll like it. I don't know. All right, so what are some standout moments from this flick? Brian, start with you.
So, okay. The movie starts with this perfect introduction to Boy. He's introducing himself to the class through this project. He talks about his family. He talks about himself. There's a line about his brother thinking that he has powers. That is a running kind of gag throughout the course of the movie that works really well. Incredibly paid off when we realize that this is what Boy told him to help him cope with his mother dying during childbirth, saying that, your powers were too strong, and that's what killed her.
Oh, it's heartbreaking, dude.
It is. And it's just wonderful. You know, we've talked about it with Eagle vs. Shark, with the silly things like the joke that comes back, or the game that they play that comes back at the end of Eagle vs. Shark, perfectly tying up just great screenwriting stuff. similarly here, like it's throughout the whole movie, and really Christian, I do kind of agree that in terms of characters, it's not as focused on him, but we do get to see him develop this relationship with the homeless man who Boy is just an asshole to earlier on, and who ultimately helps him as well. Help. So I just think that really worked for me. So I did appreciate him getting that kind of emotional beat there, because it was one of the most moving parts of the movie for me, I think.
Yeah, and I think where Taika shines is how he pays off those things where, overall we do get a kind of muted note of hopefulness. I don't think it's a ringing out, resounding, Star Wars-esque theme of heroism.
Yeah.
We've made it. And I think that's what makes this kind of a modern piece and have some tact and some deftness, is like, even in the scene where he gets saved, it's like there's no thank you, there's no I realized that was wrong, like thank you for saving. It's like just the acknowledgement. We know what happened. Like, we know those characters are feeling it. We don't actually have to say it. We're just going to tell you the story with moving pictures, as that is the format of that we're watching. And I appreciate the director respecting me as a human being and getting that feeling in the void of that emotion. I'm saying all the things the character's feeling, and I'm like, I love when directors do that. It seems like a small touch, but I think it makes all the difference. It makes those emotional points land. And what overwhelmingly could be an easy, cheap little dramatic moment feels authentic and feels true to the characters. Chris.
I still am just absolutely in love with Taika's dry sense of humor. The scene in which his father first comes to their house with his gang in the car, and they're just sitting in the car talking to Boy, and Boy's like, "You guys want some tea?" Yes. And the expectation is that's like Boy inviting them into the house to have tea. But then it immediately cuts to Taika and his gang members drinking tea in their car. Boy has brought the cups of tea out to the car for them to drink. And then there's kind of like a silent beat. And Boy's like, "Do you guys want to come in?"
Yes.
It's just very well written and timed. Taika has an excellent sense of humor.
This is one of the moments that I wanted to shout out. The editing, it's just like so quick, so perfect. And it's in the very first scene when we're, or an early scene when we're getting introduced to the different superheroes that Rocky's come up with. And it's like, oh, this one can turn invisible. And then it cuts to the blank page.
Yeah.
Just perfect, silly shit like that. Right. I'm so here for it. It's excellent. Christian?
Yeah. Okay. Let me try a funny moment, because there's so many dramatic moments that I think stand out as some of the most eventful stuff.
My second moment was going to be a more dramatic one as well.
Yeah,
so.
I was trying to be funny, and you guys took some funny ones. The T-bit's real good. I love the copper handle gag, which kind of comes at the moment of the thing. He's trying to microwave the thief comes in, or not the thief, I don't want to call him a thief, but
if I was going to rob this place, the first thing I'd go
copper,
copper doorknobs.
And you're like, that guy's trailer trash. that's how.
Oh man.
Well, I mean, that's he's a scrappy entrepreneur. Is that a better way to say it?
There you go.
I think so.
Yeah, it's like melting down all the copper, and that Boy's logic when the money is chewed up, which I felt like I was wondering. I think that's like masterfully played too, because when it's revealed that the whole time, part of the thrust of why Taika's even staying around, because he would not stay around otherwise, it is literally convenient for him, is that he's buried a stash of like $10,000 or something in a field and can't remember where it is. So throughout the whole movie, they're digging, and Boy is trying to help him find it. Boy finds it, and he stuffs it. And I was like, he found it too early. Like, I was like, how's this movie going to continue? Boy found it, and this is now we've got to make some tricky narrative decisions. And then the goat eating it is so fucking sad. Of like, you didn't want him to give it to Taika, and I think Boy knew this. Of like, giving it to his dad means that his dad might just fucking bail and crush all his dreams. So he stashes it, and then the goat eats it. And then him in his like most desperate moment is like, I heard the thing he said at the dinner table, like, I'm gonna microwave these copper doorknobs. Yeah, it's just great imagery of him staring into the microwave
as it's sparking.
as someone who's microwaved something you're not supposed to microwave before as a young man, it would not have taken that long. The minute he hit that button, there would have been lots of electricity going on, and that microwave would have been toast very, very quickly. But funny filmically. Brian, another stand-up moment.
I thought the sparklers bit, doing the extended capture of the sparklers, so we see the things there. It comes back a few times throughout, and then we get the boop at the end where Rocky apologizes to the dad. Another just really great through line throughout the course of this movie. He says at some point, I'm saving the rest of these for special occasions, and then we see when those special occasions are basically indicated with these sparklers.
Good at paying off stuff. He's good at tracking objects and meaning. It's all very like rudimentary screenwriting.
Seems
stuff, but it's
basic
handled
on some
so
level,
well.
but it's like,
But we think about like, we see a lot of shitty movies. You think about shitty movies you watch, you're like, people just forget to do this stuff that makes movies make sense and feel
So simple.
connective.
Setups and payoffs.
Yeah.
That's literally all it takes.
Yeah, but no, I'm gonna have Chris Pratt running down a dark hallway with a shotgun. That's all we need, right? Not to shit on any movie that involves that. I was actually, it's interesting. It doesn't seem like the most complicated visual effect, but the sparkler stuff, like it's not just an extended exposure, because if you did that, then you'd get trails of Taika Waititi's arms. So they're not doing that. But I was wondering if they maybe keyframed the sparkler and just kept adding just the picture where it was, or literally keyframed just someone in Microsoft Paint. It would be very tedious, but we know that they're not above doing tedious work in these movies.
Very true.
So I was curious. I was actually very curious of how they did it. I think it looks pretty good, and I honestly couldn't tell you which way they went. Those are two ways that they could have gone. But yeah, not even just a simple overexposure. But yeah, definitely really funny. Chris, it's your turn. Emotional moment, right?
I think
Hit us with the emo.
Leaf's death hit me very hard.
Man, just
And
a stupid dog.
I think it hit Leaf hard. It hit Leaf harder.
It did hit Leaf harder, but it's just so sad. And emotionally, it's kind of a callback to what we were talking about in Eagle versus Shark, when Lily's character is playing the horse game in the car, and Jermaine Clement is like, that's a stupid game. And like a child would, she immediately is like, I don't want to play this game anymore. It's stupid. Except in Boy, it hits so much harder because it involves a living thing.
And one of his, it's like his best friend.
Life. Yeah, Sweet Leaf is like his confidant over the course of the whole film. He's the only character in the movie that and while Boy isn't telling the truth, he's, concocting these wild stories and telling Leaf, like, you can see that he cares about Leaf like a family pet, and it just broke my heart when Taika Waititi, well, not Taika, but Alamein, we've yet to call him by his name in this conversation, but Alamein's like, what was that? Just a stupid dog, right? Like, get back in the car. Like, don't worry about it. And Boy's just like, yeah, it's just a stupid dog. Oh my God.
It's interesting.
It's too much.
Narratively,
it's too much for my heart to bear.
How it works too. And because you have the goat eat the money, and you're like, I was mad at the goat. You're mad because you're like, gosh, these kids have nothing. You're hoping that goes towards him and him furthering his dreams. You don't want it to go back to the dad. And then the goat eats the money, and you're just like, fucking stupid. Like, I literally was like, God, stupid goat. Stupid fucking goat. Like, that sucks. But then when Taika, like, blatant disregard for anybody else's well-being, accidentally kills him retrospectively, you're like, I'm glad that goat ate your fucking money.
Right? Yeah.
I'm like,
Good for
actually,
you,
the
Leaf.
joke's on you. That goat ate all your money, and you don't even know it.
Yeah.
And you now deserve it even more.
But, that whole sequence finishing with
Them holding
Boy
the
and
goat.
Rocky going back and dragging Leaf back to the farm, and oh my God, Boy like just holding Leaf and saying that he's sorry. I don't know, man. When it comes to animals, and this isn't going to be the last time we talk about this because we're talking about Hunt for the Wilderpeople next week, but Taika this isn't the only time Taika does something like this in one of his movies, and it hits me every single time.
I was close.
Yeah, it's rough, and like you said,
It was close to breaking down during that moment. It was rough.
and Boy's reaction is just so tragic. The culmination of him just following in line with Alamein.
Yeah, and
But I also think that moment's important because it's like the first crack in the dam.
Right.
You know, Boy coming to terms with the fact that his dad is really a shitty person.
no,
And
it's not the first crack. I mean, he sees that his friend that's a female has been like, obviously, the result of his reactions hurt other people, and that's him realizing the consequences that Taika is.
It's kind of all within the same night.
And that was going to be, that's one of my standout moments is when the guys that he had stolen the weed from, he goes into his smiling face fantasy where his dad is like this guy, kung fu fighter or whatever. And then it literally is cracking to the point where he can't hold the fantasy anymore. And it's just this tragic moment of acceptance. I think you said it earlier, of who his father is. And the true repercussions of what a terrible person he is. So that whole buildup is tough.
Yeah, I think I want to shout out the sort of towards the ending scene where we get more of that childhood imagining and wanting and longing. Done through like the animation is when Rocky's like on the hill overlooking his dad, and he's like, "I just want to know that you were sad that mom's dead." It's like that was very, like it's done beautifully. It's very simple drawings and stuff, but I think that's where that was hitting really home. That like oof, that was close. It was close to breaking me. I did not break, but it was only because my fiance was near me, and I don't want to show emotion in front of her so that she knows that I can handle stuff. But I cried later.
In the bathroom by myself.
Don't tell her. She doesn't listen to the podcast, so I don't have to worry about her finding out. But just don't tell her if you see her. Any other stand-up moments?
I think the last one, there's another recurring bit that I really like. There's a recurring spoon bit, and he eventually is like screwing in the doorknobs with a spoon.
Oh, and to start his car is a spoon, and I think
That's right.
Yeah, they like reference the fact at the very beginning that he can kill people.
He
with
escaped
spoons.
from jail with the spoon, right?
Yeah, it's very funny. It's very
Spoon is a very powerful tool.
You know, when we watched Eagle versus Shark, I was reminded of like, oh yeah, when we talked about this, like this feels like Napoleon Dynamite, feels of the moment,
Right.
And this one, and I think subsequently, is the most like A to B, Wes Anderson. Like a lot of those sequences with the spoons and all that stuff and all the storytelling, I was like, this is very like quick montagey stuff. Seems very inspired by Wes Anderson.
I could see that for sure.
A lot of them are like single camera setups.
Well, and the fact that
As
Taika's
well.
wearing like a very classic like black and white
Prison
jumpsuit that I've never seen in reality, but that seems to exist in the imagination of filmmakers. Stuff like very goofy, and he's got like the hat to the side, like all those imagination sequences where Taika's like actually capable, heroic figure.
I love when he's like in the scuba gear, like waving the harpoon gun around.
Yes.
It's all a lot of fun and corny.
Oh, the lies we tell ourselves about the ones we love. Oh, shout out to like how brutal, especially the second time it comes around, the scene of the mother's death when Rocky's born and Boy's in the doorway. Just like, I believe when we cut back to it again, where Taika's not in the shot too, it's like there's more blood everywhere. Like there's more blood on rags and stuff, and yeah, someone who just went through like childbirth process, like it's nothing more horrific that I can imagine. That hit pretty close to home. So yeah, and those are the things that I don't expect Taika to really nail. I've seen Hunt for the Wilderpeople. I can't wait to talk about it. There's a lot of really great emotional stuff that hits there, but I just never seem to expect it because he's the What We Do in the Shadows, Thor Ragnarok guy. Even seen Eagle vs. Shark, and you're like, oh, there's more tricks up Taika's sleeve, and I am actually more excited about more original work that he gets to work on.
Yeah,
Yeah.
me too. To be fair, most of his catalog is this.
You're right.
You know, the exceptions really are What We Do in the Shadows and Ragnarok.
Oh, his
and
most successful
Love
projects.
and Thunder. Yeah. But, I mean, you're not wrong. But the majority, there's a larger percentage of films like this one than those three that we mentioned. And I don't know if this is unfair, but like when I look at his catalog, and I kind of talked about this last week when we talked about Thor: Love and Thunder, I really view all of his original projects more as quote unquote Taika Waititi films, and Ragnarok and Love and Thunder are kind of just like things he did for the studio, you know?
Yeah.
Under more of a studio eye.
Watching stuff like this does get me more excited for the potential with him in a Star Wars, especially if he's able to tell like a funny, goofy side space movie, like inconsequential to any canon that will piss anybody off. I think it could be really fun. I think it could be really different. I think maybe not for everybody. I mean, Boy made $8 million, so it's not for everybody. But being able to take a property like that and tell like if it was tonally like this, I think it could connect and actually appeal to a mass audience in the Star Wars universe. So seeing stuff like this makes me hopeful that like he can navigate it and handle it differently than I think fans saw with the Thor series as it's gone on. That could be more appropriate. And I hope he can. Gentlemen, any final thoughts? Let me close out Boy.
I think I said everything. Yeah, I need to say.
Say
Brian,
it at the same time, both of you.
Brian, go, please.
This movie, I didn't realize it was on Hulu as well. It's also on Canopy. If you have the public library streaming app, available a few places. So definitely check this out.
Let me clarify. I said that last episode. I should have clarified. It's Hulu with Showtime. I'm subscribed.
You do have to pay extra.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So Showtime and Canopy, definitely worth finding this one.
I ended up renting it just to get rid of the commercials.
Oh, nice. Okay.
Well, I didn't have any
But
commercials.
worth
but
the rent.
I did. It might have been even worth the rent for like Showtime showed its logo in the corner, like old school, like USA TBS style. It was only for like 2 minutes. But when it was there, I was like, is this shit going to be there for the whole fucking... I thought like we'd gone past this stuff. It went away eventually. And I think I only had to watch an ad at the beginning and end of the movie. And it was like for...
How did you remember what streaming service you were using while you were watching the movie? Otherwise.
Yeah, it actually confused me because I was on Hulu. But
Yeah, true. Yeah.
Erica-
Okay, actually, this is fair now.
Erica, my fiance, loves a lot of programming on Showtime. I mean, she just loves TV in general, so she's seen it. Honestly, Erica should have a podcast, and I shouldn't. She watches way more TV than me, and she thoroughly enjoyed this film. Maybe I should do a segment where I get her to record a thing. She won't ever.
I was going to say she should come on.
I've tried to do that with Mickey
never
multiple
gonna
times,
happen.
and she just won't do it. So
Telling you, we need to do an app where the ladies just take over.
that'd be great.
Brian, you can grab one of your sisters
Hey.
or your mom.
There
Maybe
you
get a little bit of Michelle Dupree in here. She's a lovely lady.
Yeah, I don't know if she'd be down for it, but we can see. We'll get her a quick cameo spot.
Yeah, exactly. I think what I'm gonna do is not tell Erica and just record her. I don't know if this is legal, but I'll be like, "What'd you think of the movie, babe?" And I'm gonna press, and that's gonna be the segment. And when she finds out in like 2 years, because someone told her she did not listen to an episode, I'm gonna be like, "Well, you should have listened to my podcast." Then you would have known that I was stealing your opinions.
This is really on you.
Just laying it all out here.
Yeah,
Asking to
literally-
be caught.
I just want to say, Erica, if you are listening, I love you, but you're not listening, so I don't know what the point is. Me even proclaiming how much I love you, but you're the light of my life, and I hope I am at least. At the end of the movie, I looked at Erica. I said, "Well, at least I'm a better father than that jackass, right?" I was like, not a high bar to set myself at, but she goes, "You are a great father, but that's mostly because most fathers are shitty."
Okay, so the bar is generally low.
It's an easy mark. She goes, "You're a great father, but just by comparison."
Relative.
Yeah, exactly. Relatively. It's going to do it for Boy. You can find our podcast. We have a link in the show notes of the podcast description where you can follow us around. Email us at Pop-O-Holicscast@gmail.com, as well as subscribe to the pod on YouTube, where you can see our videos. We do videos of for the main topic episodes when they are like current film reviews, and we also do our weekly upload, which is recorded in video format if you prefer to see faces, people with faces. And if you're a movie buff, I'm going to assume that you like watching stuff. So we're going to give you something to look at.
You like people with faces. We've got 3.
We got
at least.
Talk about setting a low bar.
You know, we have Chris looks unique, Brian looks unique, and I look like a deep fake version of like if you combine both of those humans into one. So I might be a construct, a computer program of sorts.
When Brian and I set out to make Pop-O-Holics, we searched high and low for people with the programming capabilities to create a host that was essentially the combination of both of us.
But to be fair, with more hair, we had to add in a bit more hair.
True. Yeah. Brian and I don't have enough hair.
locks.
We really had on the sliding scale when you're customizing the host.
That was
we had to ask them to turn the hair all the way up.
And just like Microsoft's rogue program that started pulling way too much content from the internet and got a little bit racist and a little bit problematic, I am the rogue AI combination that has gone awry.
I'm just going to say it. I think Brian and I got what we wanted.
mission accomplished.
Our problematic host.
Or at least what we paid for.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Rogue program got a few obsessions we're not comfortable with. Let's just say that.
It is weird, Brian, that the program has created this fiction where he has a fiance and a newborn child.
Yeah.
That is a little...
I'm definitely projecting here a little bit. Yeah.
Disconcerting. But
just
we'll
wait
have
till
to
you
talk about that
wait
later.
till you see what happens in Act 3. It will blow your mind. And Pop-O-Holics fans, if you want to know what happens to my child of the rogue AI, stay tuned. Things are going to get exciting. But yeah, I don't know what the fuck just happened. What was that tangent? That was a lot of fun. That was like you guys got a little like crazy. That's awesome.
We got into it.
I love it. God, that's fun. We should do that more. And more of it we shall do. Next week, Chris, what are we talking about?
Christian, next week we are talking about Taika's third film, Hunt for the Wilderpeople.
It's very exciting. And gentlemen, where can people find more of your work on the internet?
Loyal listeners, you can find me on Twitter at Chris Conkling, talking about all things nerdy, video games, comic book, movies, television, collectibles. If it's nerdy, I'm talking about it. And you can also find my written nerdy ramblings over on carefulforspoilers.com on a monthly basis.
And you can find me on Twitter over at True Pop-O-Holic.
You can find me stuck on TikTok listening to... Yeah, what the fuck is that? I don't know. I can't get it out of my goddamn head. If you want to get other tunes stuck in your head, head on over to Midnight Satire on your favorite music player of choice for Augmented Reality EP. It's the newest thing from my musical project. It's fun. It's not very fun. It's sad, but it's like Boy. It's a lot like Boy. Someone who has not become a man yet, trying to figure it all out. And a wonderful music video that these two helped make called Not So Serious Man. Also for film buffs. Coen Brothers movies, Serious Man. It's play on that. So if you're into that kind of shit, then you should
It's got levels.
it's got lots of levels. Like Mario Brothers. Coming to a theater near you, starring Chris Pratt. Anyway, that'll do it for this episode. Later.